what makes you an entrepreneur is that you can do a little bit of everything. And there was a time when you did do everything because it was just you, and that's your strength. And then there becomes this really pivotal moment where you need to not only not do everything, but you need to do only a very limited set of things that you were put on this earth to do. And that transition of building a team and truly letting go and delegating, a lot of entrepreneurs never make, and it's the thing that holds them back their entire lives. And if you don't have great people, every entrepreneur's been there. If you have the wrong person to delegate, it makes your life worse than if you just did it yourself. And I think that only makes it more difficult to truly build a team of great people and let go of things so everyone can be who they were meant to be.
Welcome to Growth Think Tank. This is the one and only place where you will get insight from the founders and the CEOs of the fastest growing privately held companies. I am the host. My name is Gene Hammett. I help leaders and their teams navigate the defining moments of their growth. Are you ready to grow?
Today we're going to talk about culture. You know culture is important, but did you know that culture is something that happens whether you're intentional about it or not? Well, your culture is about the way people feel about the work, the environment, the mission that you're on, the values you have, how they interact with each other, how they listen, how they don't listen. There's so many elements to culture that you can't just put your finger on one part of it. So today we look at putting people first. And culture really is about people. Our guest today is the co-founder of Mobile Outfitters. They had an astronomical growth to get on the Inc. list. Recently, they were number 2,736. I had to look at my notes. They've also been on the list 5 times in a row. Think about that. They've continuously had 3-year growth rates that put them on the list 5 times in a row. They'll probably make 6. And the goal of our guest today is to be on the list for at least 10 times. When you think about putting your people first, what do you think about? Hopefully you don't think about just ping pong tables and snacks and beer in the break room. But what you do think about is how you treat those people, the empathy that you bring as a leader. Eric talks about some of the details around why people first is so important, what culture means to the organization, and he shares a ritual at the very end, which is a very powerful way that he really explains how it unifies people together, something they do every week. Make sure you tune in to this full episode. Now, I have mentioned this before. There's a special offer if you haven't gone ahead and taken advantage of this. There's a training I've put together that goes over the 3 mistakes. If you want to create a high-performing team, a team of A players, you've got to understand these 3 mistakes, and you can fix them if you understand them. So when you think about getting that training, just go to genehammett.com/training. You can get it absolutely for free. They will show you exactly your path forward to continue growth, to get out of this recession. Go to genehammett.com/training. Now here's the interview with Eric. Hey, Eric, how are you?
Good, Gene. How are you doing?
I am fantastic. Excited to talk to you today about, growth and culture at Mobile Outfitters. Give us an idea of what your company does.
Yeah, so we invent, manufacture, and sell a line of cell phone accessories, so make screen protectors and skins for mobile devices. And we sell them through a proprietary network of independently owned retail locations around the world. We've got about 800 locations in 55 countries that sell exclusively Mobile Outfitters products.
Love the whole idea of mobile, and it's a hot market. How do you keep up with all the quick trends and making sure that your company keeps growing?
I don't know. I think if I said we kept up, I would be lying. It is a very fast moving industry, which is a blessing and a curse. But I've been kind of a gadget nerd my whole life. In a previous life, Dennis and I ran a company in the mobile industry. So we've kind of been in mobile our whole careers. So we've got a little bit of an edge because of that.
I want to throw you a curveball here. I didn't prepare you for this. So if you can't answer it, that's fine. In next 5 years, what's the vision for mobile?
I think folding phones, folding displays. I know everyone talks about it, and there were a couple of disasters last year. But if you just close your eyes and picture a phone the size of your iPhone that unfolds into the size of an iPad, and what that would do to the way you use your mobile device. Do you own a laptop anymore? Do you own a tablet anymore? What can you do on a device like that you can't do now? it's going to flip everything upside down in a good way. And I think 3 years from now, Apple starts to get into that game. And when Apple does a thing, everybody does it and it becomes the next big thing. So I think that's where you're going to see it head. And that's a really exciting time for us.
Well, the reason I ask you the question is because I know that as leaders, we're in charge of having a vision for the company and for our people. Today, we're going to look at not the products you sell or talk about mobile that much, but we're going to talk about your people. You had shared with my team how important people are in the whole mixture of growing a fast company. Tell us what you mean by people are important.
Yeah, I mean, people, I think entrepreneurs fail to recognize sometimes that your company is nothing more than a collection of people doing things. And so when you put in that perspective, the people become really important. They are the company. And, while individuals may move in and out, that collection of people and the collection of things that they do is everything. And so I think there's this interesting curse that I recognized maybe 6-7 years ago, that what makes you an entrepreneur is that you can do a little bit of everything. And there was a time when you did do everything because it was just you, and that's your strength. And then there becomes this really pivotal moment where you need to not only not do everything, but you need to do only a very limited set of things that you were put on this earth to do. And that transition of building a team and truly letting go and delegating, a lot of entrepreneurs never make, and it's the thing that holds them back their entire lives. And if you don't have great people, every entrepreneur's been there. If you have the wrong person you delegate, it makes your life worse than if you just did it yourself. And I think that only makes it more difficult to truly build a team of great people and let go of things so everyone can be who they were meant to be.
I love the detail that you put into that. And I know that a lot of our listeners have been through this. They've been the founder, chief cook, bottle washer, driving sales, driving operations, new ideas. And then as the team begins to grow, they begin to let go. But typically it's too late or it's slower than necessary.
Yeah.
When you think about your own journey as a leader in those early days, what did you have to let go of to become the leader that your team needed?
Well, I first had to let go of that principle that, as a leader, I think there's a false notion that you've got to have the answers. And that's really not what being a leader is all about. And early days, you do have to have the answers because it is just you. And so I think you wire your brain, you set yourself up for failure. But, I think letting go of the notion that I've got to have the answer, that I've got to be the smartest person in the room, and understanding that as a leader, what all you really have to do is paint a vision of where we're going, where do you want to take your own company? What does it actually look like? Not in vague terms, in very clear terms so you can see it, taste it. And then it's not enough to just kind of put that out there or put it on a poster. Every day, you've got to drive that home. Every hire you make, every activity you make has to drive towards it, or else you're just creating this confusing message of this is where we're going, but today we're going to do this other thing. And I think that discipline of saying no to a bunch of things that don't align to your vision, having the courage to say, this vision I painted, this is where we're going. Even though the data may say that is a little different than I thought it was, it doesn't matter. We're marching forward. That's easier said than done, but it's, as a leader, that's what your people need. They need to know, hey, where are we going? They'll figure out how you get there, but you need to tell them where they're going.
Hold on for a second. Eric just said something that's very profound. He said, there's a false belief that you have to have all the answers. Now, at one point in time, inside your own journey as a leader, you probably did have the answers. And even if you do have all the answers today, one of the best things you can do is to not share with everyone your answers. Because if you are the only person coming up with ideas, making decisions, sharing those answers to your employees, they will begin to understand that you don't trust them, and they'll wait for your response and your review of the work. You want to make sure you encourage them to have their own sense of confidence and courage as a leader, as a high performer inside this company. Your job as a leader is to build that up. Make sure that you're not the one who has all the answers. In fact, it's exhausting if that's what you have created in your workplace. Back to the interview with Eric. One thing that I know that you have put a lot of emphasis on is culture. We haven't talked about that yet, and it's certainly part of the people, but you had said something to me before we actually cut the recorder on. You live and die by culture. Why do you say that?
Well, for me, you can't say people without culture, and you can't say culture without people. So, when we're kicking around people in my head, I'm thinking culture. And when we're kicking around culture in my head, I'm thinking about my people. I say that because I went through a really dark period where the way I describe it, it was me, Dennis, and 20 executors. And there was a culture, but we didn't design it. It was just there because there were 20 people, and it was there by default because of the people we had. And those people weren't hired because of who they were as people. They were hired because we needed a job done and they could do the job that needed to be done, which is not the right way to hire someone. That's a robot, not a human being. And that place led us to a really miserable point in our lives where we realized we didn't actually enjoy coming to work every day. And it was like pure chaos. Everyone waiting for us to tell them what to do next, which is like the weight of your world on your shoulders. And so we flipped that on its head. And it wasn't until the business broke, basically our revenue got stuck. It was the first year we ever didn't grow double digits. We grew like 8% or something, which for us felt like we were going backwards. And we said, okay, something's not working. And at the same time, it felt wrong. It just coming into work and having everybody saying, what next? And, oh, we made this mistake. And it just felt like chaos. And that's when we decided, you know what? Maybe we don't know what we're doing. And we started reaching out to other people that have built businesses before. Who would have thought someone was out there that had done this before? We were in our 20s, late 20s, early 30s actually at this point. And once we started to listen, we realized, you know what? We're trying to be the people that do everything and just have people follow our command. And that is not the way you build a culture or a business. And so that moment really taught us, let's do something different. Like that's where the culture came in.
I call that my work a broken leadership model, right? It works to a point, but then there's a place where you feel like we just can't continue at this pace, the way it works. We need people to actually make their own decisions and stand behind that. You've talked about some certain elements of culture. I'd love to just see what are the key elements that you think as a leader you have to shape to have a really high performing culture?
So for me, there's three components, and then they have to come alive in everything the business does, particularly in hiring, because that's bringing people in. They're going to carry out these things. But the mission, the vision, and the core values, which I think too many people get wrong what those things actually mean and what they should do. So getting them right and not making the mistake that a lot of people don't have core values in their company, or they do and they're in their book. And if you ask 10 people, you get 10 different answers, which means you don't have them. I think too many people, and we almost made this mistake. It wasn't without a mentor, we would have made this mistake. They're like, all right, we need core values. So the leader or the leadership team goes into a room and they bang out some core values. And then they come into the company and they're like, okay, everybody, listen up. These are now your values, as if like that's how values work. You're gonna like change someone's values because this is what we say now. You care really deeply about this now. So we didn't do that. We did it collaboratively with our whole team, and coming up with those core values for us was cornerstone number one, because it was defining who are we? What are the things we actually care about? What are our values as a collection of people? And very naturally, about 50% of people were not a fit that were on the team, so they left. They either got fired or they left on their own accord because they got very uncomfortable once we said, this is who we are. And they're like, wait a minute, that's not who I thought we were. So the core values, and then the mission and vision, for me, a vision is a big goal out in the future. It's very clear. It's a SMART goal. It's time bound. Okay, by this date, we're going to do this thing. And everybody knows it. And that truly is the leader's role. I don't think that's something the whole company crafts. I think as a leader, like I said earlier, you're there to paint the vision, and that's where we're going. And that's what a vision statement is. And then the mission is why you get up every day and do what you do. What is your purpose? Obviously, it's to generate revenue and in some cases make money, but there's a deeper meaning. That's sort of a side effect of what you actually do. And people need to know that, because if you want people passionate about your business, they need to know, well, what's the business's purpose? And so having those clearly defined, for me, they're the three pillars.
Hold on for a second. Eric just talked about the importance of mission, vision, and values. To some degree, you probably have all of those elements across your company. But here's the challenge. If those are the most foundational elements of how you as a team come together, that really give you the guidelines and guardrails to move forward, that really support you through everyday decision when you're not in the room, you want to make sure that you have them right. You want to make sure that you are living by them day in and day out. Part of this episode was about how to live by those issues to build the right culture. But ask yourself, are you truly living by the values of the organization? Are you truly living on, making this mission come alive? Are you living the vision for this? Are you doing today what allows your company to receive tomorrow? I remind you of this because these foundational elements are something not to be taken lightly, and move on and focus on other important things. You live them day in and day out. Now back to the interview with Eric. I want to challenge you to go a little bit further with them, and you can pick any one you want. What is something that you feel like companies are really missing the boat on? I know you've gone through a few mistakes, but let's just highlight one of those.
Companies meaning other companies?
Yeah.
I think too many companies, I think it's core values. I think a lot of companies have a vision, or they have goals that you could say, okay, that's their vision. I think a lot of companies have a mission, and even if they don't ever say it, if you ask people, they know why they're there. They get a sense, and there's some consistency with what people say. This is why we exist. But I don't know the statistics, Gene, maybe you do, but if you ask 100 companies, you go into their staff, go into the warehouse or go into the office and say, hey, everyone, what are the core values of this company? I really think like one of those 100 companies, you're going to get like consistency, and that the leadership team would even agree with or write. And for me, that core values are an absolute secret weapon, because you can hire people that know how to do a job. But if you've ever been in the place where you hire someone that's technically really good at their job, but just isn't a fit, and just causes conflict, and just doesn't get it, or just doesn't resolve things the way that you would have resolved them, that's core values. And core values are not on someone's resume, or I would love if they were, if people actually knew their own core values so clearly they put them on the resume. It's not in their job history. It's a thing you've got to sniff out. It's who they are as a person. You're not going to change it. It's fully wired. It was there from their parents and their grandparents, and how they were brought up and who they interact with on a daily basis. And if you're missing that, if you haven't defined what your core values are, you can't vet someone that's a match, which means you just have a random collection of people that probably have different values, and you're just going to get a really inconsistent output from that.
I would say that it's a lot higher if I had to go back into my research on the Inc. 5000 level companies, because I talked to so many of them, and I'm actually fairly surprised if they don't have values. But what I will totally agree with you, it's not the actual knowing of the values, it's do the people live by them?
Yeah, the leaders, especially the leaders.
Do the leaders tolerate, anyone, getting out of line? Do they reinforce that? Do they celebrate them and reward and recognize people? When you think about living and dying by culture, those three elements are so important. What is necessary for you as the leader to create a kind of environment for high-performing teams like you have?
So by living by that culture, I think as leaders, we think we're a lot sneakier than we are. People know what you're thinking, people know what you're feeling, people know what you're doing when you don't think they know what you're doing. And so if you let someone in your organization who, they've got this killer history, and you're pretty sure that they're gonna be the greatest salesperson on earth, but they're not a values match, they don't fit the culture, but man, I want that revenue. When you bring that person in, the whole team knows. And what you're doing is there's cracks in the foundation. The integrity of your culture is now starting to break. And if you're going to make an exception, why wouldn't your people make exceptions? Well, I know I should bring this thing up, but, and then they're thinking about that thing that you did, and they don't. And that's where I think a lot of cultures, they break down. You have, I don't know, systematic things like what you saw with Wells Fargo when, all the fake accounts are getting created to hit a goal. If leadership points the ship and it's the opposite of core values, people are going to say, well, then why am I listening to it? So I think the hiring, you've got to really, really look inside and say, this person I'm going to hire, yes, they're here to do a job, but more importantly, they're here to be a fit in our culture and to be a part of this team. Do they fit in that capacity? If they don't, I don't care how good they are, you can't hire them. I think that's really important. I think equally important, you have to have the courage to fire people. If there's a core values breach, I don't care how much of an A player they are on the team, it's the same principle, the integrity of your culture. You've got to be willing to fire that person and tell your team, this person was terminated and it's because they broke this core value or there's this cultural thing. That's why they're not here. And all that does is bond and unify everybody around, okay, culture is the number one thing here.
You have talked about core values a lot today. I don't want to go through all of them, but how many core values do you have, Eric?
We have 4. I think it's important you don't have more than 5.
You have to be listening to this on YouTube. Make sure that you go ahead and give us a thumbs up if you like this content. Subscribe, hit the bell notification. Do it now. I want to ask you this, and this is a hard question. If you had to pick one value as being your favorite, which is the one?
It's not a hard question. So our first core value is help each other and allow others to help you. And that's a two-way street on purpose. It's extremely powerful. There are people in the world that love to help people, but when you offer them help, they feel insulted. Because some people help people to be the hero and it feels good. And there's nothing wrong with that. But in our company, that's not a fit, because we had too many heroes at one point. And when people tried to help them, they got, uppity about it. And, you're saying I can't do the job or whatever. And that was just toxic for us. Maybe it's through me and Dennis are as people. We help people not just to be the person that helped you, but to truly unlock everybody's potential and take a step forward. And we don't expect anything in return for it. And vice versa. If I don't know what I'm doing, I'm going to be the first to raise my hand and say, I have no idea what I'm doing. Let me go ask people for help. That has unlocked so much potential at our company. That is hands down my favorite core value.
I want to give you one last chance here to wrap this up strong. What's a ritual that you have around values and culture that you feel like you couldn't live without?
So we do a huddle. We do an all company huddle every Tuesday at 9:30. And in that huddle, we give updates on the company and stuff, but we end it with what we call appreciations. And while appreciate is not one of our core values, we have this little box in the break room and we have a digital form for those who work remote. And throughout the week, you can appreciate someone else in the company for anything. And you circle a core value that resonates with what you're appreciating them for. And then at the huddle, everybody reads their appreciations to the person that they're giving it to. We go around. And any week, there's anywhere from like 6 to 20, depending on the week. And that is so powerful to every week. It's just reinforced. We are a team. We help each other. We have integrity. We're thoughtful. We execute. These are our 4 core values. And these are the things that other people did that no one saw. It's in a vacuum. We had an employee buy another employee a phone on his lunch break because her phone wasn't working. She was getting super frustrated, and he saw it and he went out and he bought a phone and gave it to her for free. And these are 2 of our entry-level production team members. It's not like an executive where that's not a big deal. And no one knew. They didn't tell anybody. But somebody saw it and they appreciated them for it at the huddle. And now everybody can feel the energy and the values come alive in this company. And without that, it was like all these cool things are happening, but they were in a vacuum and no one knew about it. And then we introduced this appreciation thing. And I think it really brought the team together and said, now this culture is awesome.
Eric, I'm glad I asked that last question because you just brought it home for us. Thanks for sharing your wisdom as a leader of a fast growth company.
Anytime, Gene. Appreciate you having me on.
Another great interview here. Love talking about people. We as leaders know that Strategy is important. Metrics are important in the way we grow our business, but the people are the most important element. I really believe that leaders have to put a lot of intention around creating an environment for people to play at their best, to work at their best. When you think about your job as a leader, yes, you have to keep the money flowing, you have to keep the customers happy, but you really want to make sure you have the right people and they are engaged fully and they fully are committed to it and they feel like owners. My job is very easy. My job is to help those leaders grow when they get a little bit stuck, when they're not quite clear about how to move forward. I call this the defining moments of their own leadership. I've been doing this for over 8 years. If you have any issues, you know there's another level, there's another gear that you can slide into, but you haven't figured out how to do it yet. Maybe you have to let go of something. I can help you with a phone call to get you clear about what you need to let go of so that you can reach a higher level of leadership and serve your employees and drive faster growth. Make sure you reach out to me, Gene at genehammett.com. And when you think about this podcast, think about growth, think about leadership. As always, lead with courage. We'll see you next time.